So home prices are higher than they ever been, and interest rates are higher than they've been in a generation. And what I'm hearing from a lot of my first-time home buyers is they feel like it is impossible to catch a break. I feel you, but I got you. All right. So if you've decided that you're going to go ahead and buy your first house in this crazy market, I commend you. And I'm going to give you today some negotiation hacks to make sure that when you do get that first property, you're going to get the best deal possible, right? Not going to be the best deal that ever happened in real estate, but it's going to be the best deal possible, right? Because we're dealing with the circumstances that we have in front of us. And we've decided to become homeowners. So let's make sure we're going to do this thing to the very best of our ability. So why the heck should you listen to me? Because I am a dual licensed real estate broker and mortgage loan originator. Been in real estate for about a decade now. I literally help families every single day make good decisions about their home purchase. It's the thing I do, so I know a thing or two about a thing or two, and hopefully this video helps you. So before we get into like the nuts and bolts of this thing, I gotta acknowledge, okay, different markets require different strategies. I'm in Texas. I'm in Central Texas. My primary market is Killeen, Texas, down into Austin, Texas. And right now, we're in a buyer's market, right? But the best houses on the block still sell fast, and home prices are still way higher than they've ever been. You people that are in those highly competitive markets where the prices are through the roof, like your main problem right now is that you can't afford the house. And I understand that and I acknowledge that. And I'm sorry I can't help with that in this video. This is for the people that can afford the houses that they're about to get themselves into and want to make sure that they're getting the best deal possible, and the people that are dealing with home sellers that are going to actually negotiate, okay? Now, I'm going to talk you through how to even make a seller who's not super interested in negotiation negotiate with you, right? Because we're going to appeal to what the seller loves most, and that is their net proceeds. That's the one thing every home seller is looking at when they're going to sell their home. What are they going to make on the back end? So the strategies I'm going to teach you today are going to appeal to that side of what the seller wants. It's going to appeal to their pockets, all right? Because that's what's most important to all of us. So let's dive in. So my first tip here is going to be a little bit counterintuitive. Home prices are high, yes. Interest rates are high, yes. When we go and buy a house for ourselves, we usually make an emotional decision, right? So it's not just a strictly numbers decision. It's not just a strictly investment decision. This is the place that we're gonna raise our kids, make our memories, have our family, all that good stuff, right? So we are moving on emotion. So we can't just look at this like it's a real estate investment deal. We gotta look at it like it's our house. So the one thing in this transaction that we should try and control more than anything else is the sales price of the house. One thing I know about home sellers is they want to price their home high so that a home buyer can negotiate them a little lower. And good real estate agents are always going to tell that home seller, hey, you need to price your home a little lower so that you can negotiate up. But the sales price is the one thing that is locked in. You cannot change it later. So that is the one place that we want to focus all of our attention, all of our intention on getting that sales price as low as possible. Now, this is not going to get you $50,000 off the price of the house, right? Like you really got to catch a desperate seller if you want something like that. But in order to take that sales price as low as possible, the first thing you're gonna need to do as a first-time home buyer is you're gonna have to have some cash. You're gonna need to have some money, like outside of your down payment money. And if all you have is down payment money, then maybe we need to look at down payment assistance. Maybe we need to look at 100% financing. Maybe we need to look at options like that that will allow you to now reallocate that money that you had for your down payment and put it towards other parts of the contract, other parts of the transaction that are like the closing cost, the title insurance. We're in Texas where you get title insurance, which means nobody else has a claim to the house, right? Or the property survey. Like there's all of these line items inside of a real estate sales contract, and who pays for what ends up making all of the difference. So while you might have this higher sales price, you're getting all of these things covered, right? Like the seller is paying $10,000 worth of closing costs on your behalf, and you're still asking them to lower the price by $30,000. That's not gonna make a lot of sense to them. So if you find yourself in a negotiation on a house that you love and you wanna get that sales price low, the first place that you have to offer the concession is gonna be in those closing costs. Now, just so you know, all closing costs in a real estate transaction are buyers' closing costs, okay? All of the things that are on that sales contract are things that help the buyer secure the loan and secure the property. They are your closing costs already. So if you're in a market where sellers are paying those closing costs, then you got to consider yourself lucky, right? But if you were going into a more competitive market, then all of that closing cost is going to be on you anyway. So it's time to start now thinking the first place that I'm willing to negotiate is not on my sales price. It's going to be on that closing cost. Because if I spend an extra $7,000 to $8,000 out of my pocket, which I get it. You don't want to spend that right now. You want to hold on to it. It's $7,000-8,000. Like, I get it, right? But if I spend $7,000 to $8,000 out of my pocket now in order to secure the home, right, I end up saving myself $4,000 or $5,000 on the back end just in interest on that purchase, because none of that's free. So if you can't talk them down on the sales price, but you're able to get $10,000 in closing costs paid on your behalf, just know you're paying for that. And the reason that I want you to focus so hard on the sales price is because that's where your equity lives. Now, your equity is the difference in what you owe on the house versus what you could sell the house for. So the lower we get our sales price, the higher we are able to increase our equity. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to automatically move in with equity, but it actually increases the odds of you doing so. There's different ways for you to go about getting that money, but give that cash up front now because you're going to pay for it on the back end. Now, here's my one exception to this rule. If you can take that money and grow it more than you would lose in interest by just rolling it up into the sales price, then by all means do your thing, right? So if the interest rate is 7% on that extra $7,000 and you can go and make more than 7% on that $7,000 by putting it in the stock market or something like that, do that. Totally get it. Disregard my advice. Keep the cash in your pocket. But if you just want to keep the cash in your pocket just so you can add extra upgrades to the house, then I would say focus on sales price first. Get that sales price low because we are thinking about us in the future. We're thinking about 10, 15, 20 years down the line when we got to sell this thing and we got it for a great price. And if we're talking investment, all investors know a great entry price is going to save the day every time. A good house isn't really a good house if you got it at a bad price. That's just my thought on it. All right, there's a second way that we could put ourselves in a position to negotiate from a place of strength, all right? And if you're a person that doesn't have all that extra cash to spend and you just got enough to get your house and secure it and you're gonna need those seller closing costs, well, then you're gonna wanna listen up because this one is for you. What we wanna do now is before we even go out and look at houses, before we contact a real estate agent, you're gonna wanna go ahead and get yourself fully underwritten and approved. So there's levels, right? There's a pre-qualification where you go, you do the application, you give them your documentation, they look at your credit score and they're like, oh yeah, this looks great. But the other level is they take all of that stuff, they send it back to the underwriter. The underwriter is the fact checker, the final boss, the person you got to get by to actually get the money. They send it back there to them, and they usually will come out asking you for more documentation or explanations about things that they're seeing or different bank statements. So you want to get all of that stuff in before you ever even submit an offer. Some mortgage companies won't do this because in order for you to be a real applicant, a real application for a mortgage, you have to have a property address. So some companies won't do a fully underwritten approval for you without a property address, but some will. So we're gonna look for the ones that will. We're gonna get ourselves fully underwritten and approved. Why are we gonna do that? Because two things. It makes us less of a risk, right? And it makes us as close to cash as possible. Why do people love cash offers? Because there's less of a risk of financing falling through. Well, if we already did all the hard part before we ever even went and looked at houses, and we know that our finances are fully in line, we are the next best thing to a cash offer. And you're gonna beat out somebody who's just got a pre-qualification because the bank has already said, yo, this person's good money. All we have to do is set up an address for them and they're good to go, which gives you a second benefit. It means that you can also close quicker, right? And when it comes to selling a house, speed is actually very important to a home seller, even though most home sellers will tell you, I'm not in a rush, it's all good. But if your house has been sitting on the market for a number of months, you just accumulating holding costs. And one of the things that being able to close quicker will do for that home seller to like pad their bottom line at the end of the day is it makes sure that they can close before that next mortgage payment is due, right? So what they end up saving on is that mortgage payment, taxes, insurance, could be home warranty, any other little services they got around the house like security, like all of that stuff is taken into account because you was able to come in and close in 2 weeks because you were fully underwritten. All you needed was an appraisal. So that's going to be the second tip. Get yourself fully approved because you make yourself almost as good as cash in that situation. And we all know that cash is king. All right, so a couple other minor things that we can do inside of our negotiation to help get that price lower, and that is going to be to waive some contingencies. Now, you got to do this smart, right? You don't want to put yourself in a position to where you're stuck with a house you don't want. But we have a thing called an option period here. Some people call it a feasibility period. That's a period where you're going to inspect the house, make sure you like it, and do all that stuff. And you can pull out if you don't like it, and you only lose a small amount of money. Well, making that as short as possible is a really, really good negotiation tactic that will have the seller look at your offer and say, okay, well, maybe I'll give them $5K off. They're only going to do a 2 or 3 day option. They're serious. All right. The other thing you can do is increase the amount of earnest money that you put up. So earnest money is your seriousness and commitment to the house. It's you putting some money in the middle of the table saying, hey, Mr. Seller, I got a couple dollars. I like your house. Can you take it off the market for me so that I can do all these things and make sure that I want it? All right. So if you put a bigger amount of earnest money up, then it makes you look like a serious buyer. And that earnest money gets credited to you at the closing. But if you default on the contract and you pull out outside of like the bounds of that contract, then your earnest money is what you're giving up. So these are just some small things that your agent should definitely be telling you on how to get the best deal on a house. It's a tough market. It's competitive in some places, but prices are super high. So we don't know if a crash is coming. We don't know if housing prices are gonna spike. We don't know if interest rates are gonna go up or if they're gonna go down. And if anybody tells you they do know for sure, they're lying. But the one thing we do know is getting a good sales price on the house is one of the most important things you can do. It's even more important than the interest rate because the interest rate could change over time. It's even more important than having enough bedrooms and bathrooms because you could possibly add bedrooms and bathrooms over time, all right? The sales price is the one thing that you can't change. Sales price and location, right? Like we can't pick up the house and move it. So make sure you're good with the location. But like after you found that, where I want you to focus your energy is lowering that sales price. And the 2 ways you can lower that sales price is have a little extra cash on hand to pay for your own closing costs. And the second way is to get yourself fully underwritten and approved before you ever make an offer because you make yourself less of a risk and you can close faster. And that equals dollars to a home seller. Hope this has been valuable for you. If you are buying a home anywhere in the United States of America, my team can help, especially in Texas. Like if you're coming to Texas or you live in Texas, reach out. Let's talk about your real estate goals. We're super happy to help. Also, I'm creating a first-time home buyers course. It's going to be a master class, an amazing course that's pretty much going to make you smarter than any of the other home buyers you might be competing with. And more than likely, you're going to be smarter than the real estate agent that's representing you. And that's just straight up and down. So I'll let you know when that's coming. I appreciate your time. Hopefully this video gave you some value. I will see you on the next one. Peace.